Good. Well, I'm very thrilled that everybody has joined us tonight. We're up to 83 people so far online. And as I said, my name is James. I'm going to mute everyone in just a moment. So, Rick, if you could be ready to unmute yourself once I mute everyone, then we'll be ready to roll. So just to let you know, everyone, about the call tonight, this is going to be exclusively about Juice Plus. So we're not going to be talking anything about the Juice Plus franchise. We're going to run for 30 minutes of me chatting to Rick. And then at 9 o'clock or 4 o'clock his time, we're going to move to 15 minutes of questions and answers. So you can have your questions ready. We'll do our best to run through as many of those as we can at the top of the hour. So if you're all ready, what we're going to do is we're going to mute everyone. And then, Rick, if you can unmute yourself, and then we'll be ready to go. So I'm just going to mute everyone now. And Rick, if you could unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic. Good. So, Rick, it's such a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. Good to be seen.
Right now, good to be seen, yeah. Now, if there's a chance that possibly you can turn the volume up a tiny bit.
That should be max.
Okay, all right. Is that the most? That's the highest you can go to.
Yeah.
Where's your microphone? Right. Where's your microphone? Is it in front of you on the computer or?
Yeah, I can try it.
Okay, good. All right. Well, look, we'll get adjusted to that because it's a little bit faint, but we will get adjusted to that. And okay. So, Rick, first of all, it's wonderful to have you on. And thank you very, very much indeed. And, you know, it's such an honor to have you on. We've had so many amazing speakers, but I think you're probably the most amazing of all that we've ever had, because you are really living and breathing the whole Juice Plus story in terms of your experience with it as a doctor. And that's really what we would love to talk to you about tonight. Good.
Is that better?
Not really, no. But
Okay, we'll go back the other way.
Go back to the other one. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. So, Rick, you've just been to, were you just at Indianapolis a few weeks ago at the conference?
Oh, yeah. People.
Good. And were you speaking there?
Yes, I introduced the Juice Plus Omega blend with Sean Hopkins.
Right. Okay. And that was obviously a very, very detailed presentation.
Not all that detailed. It was an overview of it.
Right. Okay. Okay. So everybody, if you've just come on, if you're just coming on, if you could mute yourself as you come on, that would be great. Then we stop any background noise. Okay. I mean, I'll go through and try to mute people, but if you can mute yourself as you come on, that would be absolutely great. Okay. So we just want to make sure that everybody's muted before we come on. So if you could hit the mute button, everyone, and then we'll be ready to roll. Yeah. So Rick, just starting straight off, I think a lot of people, you know, obviously would be fascinated that you're on the call tonight, but some people wouldn't have heard of you before. And would you just be able to give us a little bit of an overview about your medical background?
Sure. I was a specialist in infectious diseases and did consultative infectious diseases in the hospital, and I did general internal medicine in the office until 1980, when HIV came along, and Atlanta was one of the major centers where the disease was identified and swept through the population pretty heavily. So the last 25 years of my practice was more HIV than anything else.
Right. Okay. That's absolutely fascinating. So, did you practice predominantly all in Atlanta, or were you practicing in other parts of the country? Or
Well, I did my training in Buffalo, New York, and in Boston, and then I did 3 years in the Navy, including a year in Vietnam, where I treated an awful lot of malaria and amoebiasis and crazy tropical diseases, which changed me. I was going to be a cancer specialist, but all my patients were dying, and I went and treated infections, and they all lived. So I said, I'm going to do infectious diseases.
okay.
Fine until HIV came along.
Yeah, and that was a little bit more of a challenge.
Right.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And tell us just, where are you today? I think everybody would love to know, what part of the US are you in today? Where are you?
I'm in the mountains of North Georgia. I'm almost in North Carolina. I've been retired now 13 years, doing Juice Plus full time.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you're just outside Atlanta, did you say, or is it away from Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm 135 miles from Atlanta. Way
Right.
up north of the mountains.
Which in American terms is just round the corner. Yes. So, Rick, I think a lot of people would be fascinated to know, how did you first come across Juice Plus? And what was it that attracted you to it?
Well, Juice Plus was introduced in April of 1993 in San Diego, California. And nobody paid any attention to it except for one NMD, took it home and gave it to his ophthalmologist, who identified immediately that it had medical value for patients, because at the time there were publications that said vitamins A, C, E, and zinc could not prevent the occurrence of age-related macular degeneration. But a serving of spinach once a week would reduce it by 44% because it had lutein in it. And Juice Plus had lutein in it, had spinach in it. So he saw value in it. So the first healthcare professionals to recognize Juice Plus were ophthalmologists. And indeed, my upline was three ophthalmologists that introduced me to Juice Plus in May of 1995.
Wow. And so they were already using Juice Plus for their patients, getting great results, and became very enthusiastic about it, and then wanted to talk to you about it.
That's correct, yes.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So it was mainly in ophthalmology where it began, and then it started, and then obviously people began to think that there were other applications for it.
Absolutely. So what happened in my situation was, during the 80s, HIV was rampant, and there were years during the 80s, most of the years during the 80s, I lost almost a patient every day. Over 300 per year died from HIV. And what I learned from my patients, because we had very, very few medications that were a benefit to the patients back then, and what I learned from my patients was that those who had the best nutrition did the best with their HIV infection. So I started to recommend nutrition to my patients, and I saw some good results. Of course, I didn't know anything about nutrition. I had to learn something about it. I had to study it because it's not taught in school, in medical school. Doctors in America are taught to diagnose and treat disease, not prevent it. And nutrition is all about reducing the risk of disease and maintaining health. So I had to learn about it, but I did see results in my patients. So when I was introduced to Juice Plus, I knew immediately that my patients really needed it very badly. They were sick. They had nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. They couldn't eat 10 or 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. So here was concentrated nutrition, fruits and vegetables in concentrated form. It was easy for them to swallow, and I began to see some benefit right away. And some of those patients are still alive today, 23 years later, who were close to death when I introduced Juice Plus to them.
Wow, what an amazing story. So Rick, when you were first told about Juice Plus, as a doctor, not having any particular background in nutrition, what did you first think?
Well, I thought, here's concentrated nutrition, and this is what they needed. By that time, I had learned the value of nutrition. I learned about phytonutrients and antioxidants and how they're concentrated in plant-based nutrition, and that you can't get those items from any other place. So I knew the patients needed them to support all of their physiology. So I started to recommend it right away. I became a representative right away because my patients couldn't buy it in the store. I had to facilitate them getting Juice Plus so they would have it.
Yeah, and then did you start talking to other doctors yourself about it in other fields? And did they begin to see some positive results?
I sure did, and I had several of them sign up and become representatives with me, and I didn't know how to train them, and I didn't know anything about the virtual office, so they all dropped out for the most part. I still have few doctors on my team, but a lot of those from the early days just dropped out, didn't maintain any interest in it.
Yeah. Can you give us an indication of the variety of different specialities that some of these doctors had that were attracted to Juice Plus?
Well, we've got a lot of them now. Back then it was mostly my colleagues in internal medicine, endocrinology, cardiology, that sort of thing. But we've got all spectrum of them now. There's, I help the company communicate with healthcare professionals, and we've got all of the specialties represented. We've got cardiologists, we've got oncologists, we've got nephrologists, we've got surgeons, we've got dentists, a lot of chiropractors, a lot of naturopaths. So it's a wide spectrum of specialties that are participating in the Juice Plus business.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think in the United States, you have the highest retention of Juice Plus customers worldwide. And it's probably a lot to do with the influence of the doctors and the message that they've been able to bring.
Yes, I think that's true. I think Italy started off with a lot of doctors as well.
Yeah, yeah. Now, that's really fascinating. Rick, a lot of people would be very interested to just hear a little bit about your feeling about the science behind Juice Plus, because obviously, as you first said, when you first started out, there was no scientific studies behind it, and it was effectively just working on people's experience and what they were seeing working with their patients. But now we have a very wide body of science. And can you just give us a little bit of an overview from your standpoint of what impresses you most about the science?
Well, first of all, it's very high quality science, and numerically, we're up to 38 peer-reviewed publications now. But I mean, let's be reasonable. Nobody would believe that we could get the nutritional essence of 36 vine-ripened raw fruits, vegetables, grapes, and berries into capsules. They just wouldn't believe it. So the science is there to prove what it is as physicians we're experiencing with our customers and with our patients and with our colleagues and with our guidelines who are showing great results from taking Juice Plus. Explains why we can see those results. We don't have to use testimony because we've got clinical research that documents it's evidence-based and it's clinically proven. And one of the statements that corporate has come out with at Indianapolis was, we are the most scientifically proven nutritional product in the world. And they passed the lawyers to make sure that it was a valid statement and that they couldn't have any trouble with the FDA or the FTC for saying that. So we are clearly the most proven nutritional product in the world.
Yeah. Can you tell us, as a doctor, Rick, can you just tell us a little bit about the efficacy of scientific studies and what is involved? And when you say high quality of science, what impresses you most about that where you think as a doctor, it's got like a big tick, a gold standard as such? What particularly sets it apart?
Well, when we started out, we just had pilot studies. Juice Plus was only a year or 2 years old. And we just did a couple of pilot studies to see if it was, first of all, if it was bioavailable. And secondly, if it had any efficacy for doing something for human physiology. After that, it was all gold standard, double-blind, placebo-controlled research, published in peer-reviewed medical journals. Peer-reviewed means the publication is completed, the research is completed, it's analyzed, it's put into a publication, which is submitted for review by a journal. The editorial board looks at it, then if it's good enough to pass their muster, they'll pass it on to 3 experts in the field. experts in the field of study involved with the research paper, and they have to agree unanimously that it is acceptable for publication. If one of them disagrees, it's not acceptable. And they don't know each other is reviewing the publication. They cannot communicate to talk about the paper. It's independent, peer-reviewed evaluation, and they have to be unanimous, and they have to agree completely that it's acceptable for publication. Now, all medical publications are kept track of by an organization known as PubMed, and they calculate what's known as an impact factor. What is the impact of this journal on the general scientific knowledge of the world? To calculate that, they measure how many times the journal is quoted in other medical journals. In other words, what's its impact on science? Is it being repeated? Is it being quoted? Is it being talked about? A respectable impact factor is 10 to 15. The Juice Plus impact factor at the present time is 110. Very highly accepted gold standard research. And we've got another 4 papers in publication right now that I think in a year our impact factor will be well over 100, well over 200.
I mean, that is absolutely staggering.
It sure is.
What does that really mean in the medical community? What would that say about Juice Plus?
What says the science is great science. The science is not just good, it's great science. And our most recent paper from University of Newcastle outside of Sydney, Australia, really speaks to that, because we are actually doing genetic evaluation of the impact of Juice Plus on the manifestations of our genes. You see, we've all got good genes and bad genes. The key is to promote your good genes and suppress your bad genes, because you cannot change your genes, but you can change whether or not they are manifest. You can hide them or you can promote them. And Juice Plus does just that. We impacted over 1,600 genes of inflammation in that study.
Wow, that's and that has been published, or is it just about to be published?
Oh no, it was published last February.
Wow. Okay, well that's incredible. So it is extraordinary, isn't it? The level of science, and I think sometimes people don't grasp really what a significant product this really is. But obviously from your standpoint as a doctor, you can see it in a much clearer way, I suppose, than a lot of other people perhaps could. So that's very exciting. I mean, in your view, Rick, what do you think really makes this product so special? What do you think, as a doctor, you think there is something really extraordinary here?
Well, we don't take any shortcuts. This process that we go through is high quality. There are over 26 separate inspections, evaluations along the way between the farm and the capsule. In addition to that, it's subjected to independent review by a third party, the NSF, which tests every batch of Juice Plus and documents that what's on the label is in the capsule, and what's in the capsule is on the label and nothing else. You probably heard that in New York State, the Attorney General of New York State went into 4 stores, Walmart, Walgreens, Target, and GNC, took bottles off the shelf, evaluated what was in them, and issued a cease and desist order because it was fraudulent. Not only was on the label was not in the bottle, but there was stuff in the bottle that wasn't supposed to be there, so it was fraudulent and it was actually dangerous. So they stopped them from selling those supplements. That'll never happen with Juice Plus, because not only do we test it every step of the way, but we submit it to outside testing as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So when you say outside testing, so you're talking about all the different bodies, the universities and the medical establishments?
Well, that's the research. I'm talking about quality testing, and that's NSF. It's also Swissmedic in Europe, and the I forget the one, Fusarium, something like that in France. Somebody on the line might remember what it is, but there's one in France that does it. And also the organization in Southeast Asia and Australia.
Right. And so, Rick, how would you see Juice Plus as something, as part of the overall development of the way medicine is going? Do you see that Juice Plus is now a very important component of the way medicine, treatment, and the whole, impetus of medical science is going?
Well, we can look at that in two ways. First of all, again, the job of the medical profession is to diagnose and treat disease. It's up to the patient individually to maintain health and reduce the risk of disease. And the only way that's done is with nutrition. And that's why the health of the United States in particular is so poor right now. We've gone, almost every disease has increased in incidence because of our nutrition. During World War II, we had rationed food. We didn't have enough food to feed America. We had 16 million men and women at war. Food was rationed. We were actually asked to grow victory gardens. And I lived up in Buffalo, New York, and we had to can it in the fall because we needed to eat something in the wintertime, and we didn't have freezers back then. So we had to can the food. Well, from rationed food, the war ended, and we became a nation of abundance. We didn't have to make tanks anymore, so we made automobiles, and that led to fast food, and then that led to junk food, and now you can go into any market and buy food you can buy material with negative nutritional value that does more harm than good. So incidence of every disease has increased, and that's because of a thing known as epigenetics. You can't change your genes. You got 22,000 genes, and you can't change those, but you can hide them or you can promote the bad ones. And there's wrapped around your genes is your epigenome. And your epigenome responds to what you eat and the stress you put your life into. And epigenome can hide genes or it can manifest genes. And now we've got more hypertension, more diabetes, more obesity, more cancer, more of almost everything than we've ever had before, because the epigenome is inherited right along with the genome. So I believe it's our opportunity, but also our responsibility to spread the word about nutrition, get it out there so that we can, in fact, change the way the health of the world is deteriorating and get rid of some of these epigenetic diseases that have been manifesting for the last 70 years. Now, that's one side of it, but the other side of it is nutrition is desperately needed in our hospitals. If you look at intensive care units, if you look at trauma cases around the world, some of the trauma cases that come in have been leading poor lifestyles, have been having poor nutrition for most of their adult life. So they have no reserve. When they get injured, say they get in a car accident, they get into a hospital, in the first 4, 5, 6 hours of surgery, they've had anesthesia, they've had antibiotics, they've had invasive procedures, they've had all kinds of stress, and they have totally eliminated their antioxidant cascade. They didn't have much of one to begin with because antioxidants come from what you eat from the plant world. So you get depleted of your antioxidant cascade, and every organ in your body is subjected to oxidative stress because the stress that they are under is so severe that they have what's known as multi-organ failure. So when I was practicing medicine, I was a consultant in the intensive care units, and we would put Juice Plus down through their feeding tubes to give them the antioxidants to fight off the multi-organ failure that they were approaching. Once they get into multi-organ failure, most of them die. So you want to avoid that, and the way to do that is help them maintain their antioxidant cascade. And the only way to do that is with whole food, plant-based nutrition, which is what the Juice Plus capsules are. Of course, you had to dissolve the capsules and flush them through a tube so they wouldn't plug up the tube, but that can be done, and we did it all the time.
Wow. Wow. And so we're just coming up to the last 5 minutes of our conversation, Rick and I, and then we're going to move into the questions. So if you've got any particular questions that you want to ask Rick, then would you put them down in the chat box at the side? You'll see that down at the bottom, chat. You go into that and you can ask whatever question you want there, and then I will go through those, and then once we get past the hour, we'll have 15 minutes of questions. So this is an unbelievable opportunity for us to ask Rick you know, some really fascinating questions. So please get writing with your questions, and we will come on to those in about 5 minutes' time. But Rick, I just really wanted to ask you, you know, obviously, you know, a lot of people that are listening to the call tonight that are already on, you know, and taking Juice Plus, some people perhaps who aren't. How did you used to and introduce Juice Plus, or how do you introduce Juice Plus to a patient? How would you explain it to a patient where they think, look, I absolutely must take this?
Well, I usually didn't. I would, you know, part of your review of systems with every new patient is to ask about allergies, ask about medications they're taking, ask about their past history and their surgical history, and also ask them about their nutrition and what vitamins they take and what minerals they take and what dietary supplements they take. And I would have empty bottles of Juice Plus in each exam room, and I'd say simply, here's what I take, here's what my family takes, here's what we recommend to all of our patients. It's fruits and vegetables in a capsule backed by solid research. And then I'd reach in my pocket and take out my wife's card, and it says Jan Dubois, Wellness Coordinator. And I'd give them that, and I'd say, call my wife, you're not bothering her, she wants to hear from you, she'll answer all your questions, and arrange to have it delivered right to your home. And that'd be about all I'd do. And then she would close the deal when they called. If they didn't call, I would ask them on their next visit. I said, you know, would you rather my wife called you? And I got their permission for her to call them. And of course, we've got laws over here. I could not disclose anything about my patient to my wife, but I could give the contact information to her because I had their permission to do so. And of course, if they wanted to tell her about their health, they would, and they usually did. But it was not a disclosure of anything about the patient, just the contact information because I was given the information.
Yeah, great, Rick. That's absolutely fantastic. So let's just, everybody, if you could just keep coming with your questions. I can see a lot of questions coming in already, but let's just keep going with more questions. And then, Rick, I suppose the last question I really wanted to ask you is, how important is the role of those people who are developing a customer base of satisfied users of Juice Plus, do you think?
I'm sorry, what's the role?
So how important is the role of people who are developing customers of Juice Plus, do you think?
Oh, very important. Very important. You know, this is word of mouth spread. We don't advertise. It has to be done word of mouth, person to person. And as Jay Martin would say, it's face look, not Facebook, but it's person to person, and it's communication. Just the same way you hear about movies, and if you see a good movie or you read a good book, you tell people about it. And it's the same way with Juice Plus. And it's a person to person, individual contact, and then a lot of times the healthcare professional is a big help in a three-way call with those customers if they need to have some sort of medical communication about the thing.
Okay, Rick. Well, good. Well, that's absolutely wonderful. So we're just at the top of the hour now, so we're going to move into our questions. And so these are all obviously unprepared. So I'll do my best to ask them, you know, in a way where I'm seeking to cover as many as possible. Right. Okay. Now, obviously, we can't make any claims here about anything, but what we're doing is we're just making particular comments about that. Yeah. So Simone asks, Rick, what do you say, or what would you say to your patients who would tell you they already eat plenty of fruit and veg, and they already think they have a good diet?
Well, first of all, they're probably kidding themselves. The recommendation is 7 to 13 servings a day, a serving roughly the size of your fist. There's very, very few people that come even close to that. If they do, they're probably getting a lot of insecticides, herbicides, and preservatives as well. And that's the good thing about Juice Plus, because it's guaranteed not to have any of those things in there. And again, it's tested and guaranteed every batch. So insecticides is one of the biggest problems, at least in the United States, and I think elsewhere around the world as well, to our food supply, the additives, the chemicals that get in there, and the poisoning of our systems. Now, it's important, and I think it's worth stating, that all of our research focuses on aspects of physiology. If we did research on diseases per se, we would have to be called a medicine. And what we do is we look at aspects of physiology that are recognized as being active in causation of human disease and in decreasing human health, such as premature aging and various degenerative processes. So all of our research focuses on aspects of physiology and not on diseases per se.
Yeah. Rick, Sean from Holland asked the question, you mentioned in Indianapolis some of the prevention benefits of the omegas. Can you tell us those again a little bit now?
Well, the omegas are amazing. Two of them are actually essential. You must eat them. You can't get them anyplace else. But omega research is very, very complete, not ours. Now, we haven't done research on our omegas. It's in process now, but we don't have any results yet. But omegas in general have been shown to decrease inflammation, decrease infections, decrease allergies, decrease blood pressure, decrease cholesterol, enable getting toxins out of our body. And there are even studies of omegas in vitro in test tubes of decreasing the cell growth of prostate and breast cancer. On the other hand, omegas have been shown to increase insulin sensitivity, promote gene expression, the epigenetics that I mentioned earlier, promote cell health, which means it's kind of anti-aging, enhance the immune system, support brain health, skin health, bone health, eye health, and even to help with mitochondrial function. If you think about it, actually every cell, every organ in our body utilizes omega fatty acids. And we've got the blend of omega fatty acids, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9, in a proper proportion, a little bit about twice as much omega-3s as the others. And they are all plant-based. There's no animal anything, not even the capsule in Juice Plus Omega Blend is animal anything. So this is all plant-based, DHA, EPA, ALA, omegas, and we got it from 6 different plants: the safflower seed, the tomato seed, the red raspberry seed, the sea buckthorn berry, and of course the algae itself. We get the algae from the sea, and we have it controlled so it's not contaminated with PCBs and all the other things, mercury and so forth, that can be found in the sea or in other water sources. So we've controlled for all of that. So we have a extremely high quality omega blend, and I think our research is going to show very positive results. And we'll also probably show very beneficial synergy with our regular Juice Plus Trio capsules.
And when you talk about synergy, Rick, that's an interesting concept. What do you mean by that? Yeah, go on. What do you mean by that?
Well, many things in our trio are fat soluble. The tocotrienols, the tocopherols, the carotenoids are all fat soluble. So if you take them with meals or with olive oil or with our omega blend, we can expect to see enhanced absorption from what we have if you take it on an empty stomach without oil in the mix.
Fascinating. We mentioned ophthalmologists right at the beginning, and you said that was the area where people noticed the biggest results straight away without any studies or anything like that. Are you aware of any studies that have been done by ophthalmologists or anything like that?
No, we haven't done any of those specifically. We have anecdotes all the time from ophthalmologists, and as I say, there are many ophthalmologists who are not only recommending Juice Plus to their patients, but they are participating in the virtual franchise in the business of Juice Plus. And they talk about, they really sincerely believe they are decreasing the incidence of macular degeneration in their patients. They talk about decreasing the progression of macular degeneration in their patients, as well as other eye health. But we don't have the studies, and we don't use anecdotes when we make our presentations in front of customers.
Yeah. Rick, you mentioned just about the omegas. Which are the two absolutely essential omegas?
The alpha-linolenic acid is an omega-3, and linoleic acid is an omega-6. Those are essential. You must eat those because you can't make them yourselves. And we're very poor at making DHA and EPA, which are the ones primarily for heart and bone marrow and blood vessel health and brain health. We don't make those very well from the omega-3s. It's best to get those in their natural form, and we can get those from the algae, and we do, and they are present in our Juice Plus. And then we can take the ALA and about maybe at the most 10% of that can be converted into DHA and EPA.
Yeah. Rick, just talking about other doctors, Suzanne asks, if sharing medical research with a general practitioner, which study would you recommend that gives the best overview of Juice Plus? Or what would be the most impressive study for them?
I wouldn't do a single study. We have a quick reference guide. I think I have one here. A quick reference guide. I don't know if you can see that. This is a packet of 2. This is the way they come. And it summarizes all of our research. It's got a page on each of the oxidative stress, DNA damage, that sort of thing. And at the very back of it, on the back cover, is a link to every study we've published. So you can go to the internet and read the link, download the manuscript. So this is available. I'm sure it's going to be there in UK very soon, but we got it here right now. They sold out at conference. They were so popular, it sold out. But it's in a pack, and it's a great thing, and I think it'd be a fine way to just give that to a healthcare professional and let him look for any of those he wants. I think our best manuscript to date is our Newcastle study on the epigenome. It actually says in there that fruit and vegetable supplement will be, their final conclusion can reduce systemic inflammation and decrease the rate of developing degenerative diseases. And we've known that for several decades, that fruits and vegetables can do that. But this is the first time it's ever been put in print about a single product, and that product is Juice Plus, and it's in print.
Wow. And Rick, that is the Newcastle study in Australia, is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so as we move on, I mean, one person has got, I'm sorry, I missed their name, but I remember the question. Someone was talking just a little bit about diabetes. Now, diabetes is really of sort of epidemic proportions, certainly in the UK and across Europe. I don't know what it's like in the US. Can you make any comments about diabetes in connection with Juice Plus?
Sure, diabetics have, most of them are overweight, not all of them, but most of them are, but even without being overweight, they have a tremendous amount of oxidative stress. They have free radical damage ongoing all the time, primarily because they're burning sugar. And they have a significant risk of kidney failure and vascular disease, heart attacks, strokes, amputations, infections. And they can't eat a lot of fruit because of the sugar content in it. But Juice Plus doesn't have any sugar in it. And what they can do is consume the phytonutrients and the antioxidants, decrease their oxidative stress without adding calories to their daily nutrition. Now, we've got studies. We've got one study from Vanderbilt that shows it actually shows a gradual improvement of the hemoglobin A1C, the glycohemoglobin. That's the way of measuring diabetes control. We've got the study in the children of decreasing insulin resistance in these overweight boys in only 6 months. And of course, 6-year-old boys shouldn't have insulin resistance, but that's the state of pediatrics right now in the U.S. So the Nemours Children's Foundation has already done 2 studies on Juice Plus in the children, and they're going to continue to do more studies for us. So I think Juice Plus is an essential part of diabetes management.
Good. Rick, obviously, I mean, the key thing is for people to take Juice Plus forever, but some people do stop, and of course that's a great mistake, we would say. What would you say to someone to say, look, you've really got to be taking this forever? What would be your take on that?
Well, I think once they stop, they begin to realize that they're missing something. That most of them probably will go back to it, but I don't know. It's just the magnitude of the problem. Everybody's got a right to destroy their own body if they choose to do so, but the foundation of human health is a diet rich in whole food, plant-based nutrition, and as they say, if you don't take care of your body, where else are you going to live? So I just think you appeal to their intellect and their pride. It's going to help them look better, feel better. Everything about their lifestyle depends on their nutrition, and Juice Plus is foundational in terms of nutrition.
Mm. And Rick, just as we sort of come up to the conclusion really of our call today, and this is just absolutely amazing what you're saying, and how would you describe your feeling about being surrounded by so many people who are totally focused on prevention and who are not just focused on bringing the story of prevention, but are experiencing themselves? Because obviously, as a doctor, you've been around so much sickness and disease all your life, but suddenly you're in a different environment. And how would you describe that feeling?
Well, I think the nicest thing about Juice Plus are the people. It is so fabulous to be surrounded by like-minded, mission-driven people who want to make a difference in the world and who realize they are making a difference in the world. I mean, besides health has got to be the first thing people are concerned about, and we're making a difference with that. We are making a difference around the world. Look at our children's health study. Over 1 million families participating in that, and over 1 million families showing positive results. Over 98% of those families have a positive health result from taking Juice Plus. And the studies show the longer they participate in Juice Plus, the more improvement that they actually benefit. So the greatest thing about what we do is that we're doing it together. We're doing it as a group of like-minded, mission-oriented people who in general are healthy and happy. And I just love that. That's the nicest thing about what we do.
Well, Rick, we're up to time now. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, the number of people that we've had on the side saying, this is amazing, I can't believe I've never heard this before. You know, it's so fantastic. And I think often, you know, perhaps we don't really talk as much as we should do about the product and about the science. And I think this has been, even though I've been involved with the company for so long, this has been extraordinary for me, listening to what you've been saying, and with the conviction and your experience. It's really second to none in terms of, you know, a wonderful illustration and a representation about Juice Plus.
Thank you, James. We're doing the right thing.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you, everybody, so much for joining us tonight. This has been recorded. And we'll put it out on various different sites. We'll make sure that you know, everybody gets it. And thank you very, very much indeed for joining us, and particularly Rick. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night. Take care. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
Thank you, Rick. Bye.